Boom. Here we go. You ready for this?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Awesome.
How about you introduce yourself and just give us a little bit about your background because you seem like you have a lot going on for yourself. I checked out
Yeah.
your website. I loved your YouTube video. That's a great introductory and great message. But go ahead, introduce yourself and give us some background.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Eddie Thomason. I am a professional speaker and a best-selling author. So that is what I do, what I like to do primarily. But outside of that, I also still work for a full-time company. I'm in sales. I do software sales as well as office equipment sales. So that's what I'm doing full-time right now until we can transition fully outside of that into doing what I feel as though is the most important, which is leaving an impact on people, right? I think my biggest thing is that in life, you should be able to leave something for the next generations and not just kind of live in the moment. I had a mentor of mine that told me if your dreams and goals can be accomplished in your lifetime, then you're not dreaming big enough. So my biggest piece behind me is basically being able to help people break those self-limiting beliefs, get out of their own way so they can really pursue a life that they're passionate about living. I feel like we live in a society today where people feel as though they just have to be stuck in what they're doing forever, where you really don't have to, man. It doesn't matter the city that you were born into, the family that you grew up in. You can create success wherever you want to do. You're just going to have to basically do some work and be consistent at it.
Exactly. So I love what you're doing. So you have a full-time job, and then
Yep.
you are trying to make another source of income to replace your full-time job, right?
Absolutely.
By following your passion. That is
Yep.
that is what I believe. I believe the same thing. You can do that. Anybody can do that.
Hmm.
And if you follow that passion, you will eventually get there because it's your passion. You'll eventually be able to
Exactly.
find your audience and be able to live the way and the job that you want. And that's great that you're doing that.
Absolutely, man. Like I said, I feel like a lot of people, unfortunately, have this stuck mindset of like, I got to go to school, I got to get good grades, I got to go to college, I got to come up and I got to get a good job, and then you get stuck pretty much. I
Hmm.
call it the treadmill of life. At that point, you wake up, you go to work, you come home, you eat, you watch TV, you go to sleep, you wake up, and it's just a repeated cycle over and over and over again. Where I feel as though there's so much more time in a day, man. Like all that extra time that you have coming home from work, a lot of people say, I got to decompress or I got to do something else. No, start working on your dream.
Yeah.
If you can give
Yeah.
somebody else 8 hours of your time, then you can give yourself 8 hours
Yes.
of time. Technology is great until it's not.
Exactly. Um, but stuck on the hamster wheel of life. You want to keep building on that?
Yeah. So, like I said, I feel like a lot of people are stuck on that hamster wheel of life where they basically just wake up, they go to work, they come home, they watch TV, they eat, they go to sleep, right? And then it's just a repeated cycle day in and day out. Where I feel as though there's so much more extra time that you have. I feel as though, again, if somebody is in a standpoint where they think, man, I can go to work and I can give somebody 8 hours of my day to build their dream, then you should be able to come out of work and give 8 hours to yourself, or at least 4 of those hours to yourself. Obviously, if you got family dynamics and things, it changes. Like for
Hmm.
me, it's funny because I started my journey as an entrepreneur single, then I got married, then I had one son, now I got two sons. So like the time that's allocated changes. I think my time is just different. But when I was single, man, I feel like I came out of work and I would just do anything and everything after 5 o'clock to
Hmm.
build my own vision, my own dream. And then as time went on, obviously family is the very most important thing to me. So instead of spending so much time, maybe it's not 10 hours at night to try to figure out what the heck I'm doing for my own personal brand, but now it probably got chopped down to 3 or 4. But even those 3 or 4 hours compounded over time, if you're consistent with it, it's going to produce the results that you want.
Exactly. Discipline over time, compounding. It's going to get there. You just got to find your audience. You got to find your niche.
Facts.
And you said something about you got to decompress after work. I mean, if you have your passion, if you put work into it, that should be your decompression, in my opinion.
100%.
I mean, so many people love entertainment. I mean, there's always something out there that somebody could be starting, just either a blog or an
Yep.
Instagram page. It's not even that high effort, depending on what you're going into. Obviously, if it's something
Right.
extremely detailed, it's going to take time. But um,
Absolutely. I talk
so
about something. I don't mean to cut you off, but I was talking about something inside of my book itself is in the chapter called listening. And I feel as though it's a one section that's inside of there that at first, I'm gonna be honest with you, Steve, I didn't know if I actually wanted to have it in there or not, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put it in here because I feel like it's gonna help somebody break some type of belief that they have, which is basically instead of using YouTube to entertain yourself, you can use YouTube to learn a skill and start building something of your own immediately with free tools, free things that you have. I mean, like everything that I created as far as the book cover, all the designs and everything was all using free software that I could just download onto my computer. So for example, if you're, say if you're coming home from work and you got a passion for photography, or you got a passion for digital design, or you got a passion for all these different things, what I love is that YouTube, you can learn anything on that thing now, man. Like it's not just funny cat videos no more, right?
Yes, I'm YouTube valedictorian, man. I love YouTube.
Facts. Anytime I look at anything, and I feel like a lot of people lose that perception, right? Like they think YouTube is just like this place where I'm supposed to be entertained. But honestly, YouTube has grown to be the second largest search engine in the world. People are trying to find out how to do everything on YouTube. Heck, man, I figured out how to put this mic on the tripod because it's a blue snowball mic. I didn't know how to do it without looking at a YouTube video. I was like, man, the thread is too big. I don't know what's happening. But anyways, I feel like people can look up, a digital design or photography, whatever else it may be, and they think like, oh, I got to make this huge investment. It's not usually a big investment, maybe $100, $200, if that. And there's even other options that are a lot cheaper than that. Digital design wise, you can download a software called Inkscape for free and literally design anything in a vector image and then sell it. Once you learn that skill, you know how many people are then going to be asking like, oh, bro, I got this idea. I want to make this logo. I want to do this thing. Can you help me? Yeah, man, absolutely. And now you start building your portfolio. You can do anything you want, man. I don't think it's a lack of time that people have. I think it's just a lack of ambition to just say like, hey, I can do something different and I can change my mindset to stop thinking, oh, I can't because it's too late or I don't have enough time. You have first got to adopt that mindset of saying, I can. So now you start focusing on solutions instead of dwelling on the problems that you have. You know what I mean?
I think when you're in that mindset, you actually you start seeing signs of how to accomplish it. I don't know I was figuring out how to ways to market my own business, and I was listening to some rapper on an Instagram live feed, and he said, "Stop putting out music if you're trying to be a rapper. Start learning Adobe right now. Just learn Adobe so you can learn how to promote yourself, make videos." And I was like, that first thing I did was take like an 11-hour YouTube tutorial on Adobe Photoshop. And it's like, I was just trying to promote my business. I wasn't really looking for that through my this rapper, but I saw the sign because I was looking for it. I was ambitious enough to try to listen to find those, just advice in general.
Exactly. I agree. I feel like a lot of times, and people don't realize this, but you find what you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a simple statement, but it goes so much deeper. So from a perspective of if you think in your mind that, oh man, I can't find opportunity, I don't know how to do something, or I don't know this, and your mindset is just I'm stuck, then all you're gonna find is more barriers, right? You're gonna feel like you're looking or you're searching, but what you're only doing is you're allowing all that negativity to come back and give you all the reasons of why you can't do something or why you can't figure something out, right? But on the opposite side of it, if you figure out how to train your mind to start thinking, man, I can do something, I can figure this thing out, or how can I instead of I can't, then now you start to change that entire mindset and you start to see, again, solutions instead of problems, right? So you're not saying like, oh, I can't because of this. You're saying this is a challenge. How can I overcome it? And it's a completely different thought process that I feel like a lot of people, if you're wanting to be an entrepreneur or you are an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter. You need to have that mindset in order to grow your business forward. Because, I mean, you and me both know you're going to run into challenges and obstacles every single day. But you got to have that overcoming mentality in order to push through those challenges and really be successful in what you want to do, your passion as a business.
Exactly. How did you kind of develop that mindset? And then is that kind of what and then kind of talk about your focus of your book. I feel like they're both related, but I'm not too sure about what your book's about.
Absolutely. So I'm be honest with you, a lot of my mindset came from a mentor that I have. And honestly, I met that mentor initially through a network marketing business that I was introduced to. But it's funny because, like, you know, a lot of people have this misconception about network marketing and all the different basics that go into it. But in the end, here's what I learned. Success principles are universal, period. So if somebody's successful at one thing, you can take what they learned and apply it to what you know, and you're going to also create that success, right? Obviously, you got to adapt it and make it work for your individual industry, but that's what you have to do, right? So a lot of my mindset initially came from, his name is Evan, his name of my mentor, and just a great guy. Like, I've never had an example in my life that was like a positive example. Like, my entire childhood, I literally got to where I was when I was 22 years old because I did the exact opposite of every single male figure in my life, right? And it sounds weird, but I mean, it's just true. My brother didn't make the best decisions. My father didn't make the best decisions. And when you look at the path and the life that they created, I only said to myself, I don't want that. So let me just do the opposite. Let me go in the opposite direction, right? So when I met Evan, when I was 22 years old, I just came out of college. And I remember just seeing just the lifestyle that he had. At the time, I think he was between 32, 33 or something like that. But he had a successful marriage. He had 2 successful businesses. He had, oh my gosh, kids that I've never seen so well behaved and so well spoken. His kids can hold a conversation better than most adults can today, which is wild. So I started looking at this man. I was like, man, he has a lot of fruit on the tree. I got to figure out what he does and what he knows. And long story short, you know, we had coffee. We wound up basically, you know, developing a relationship, and it turned into this mentorship type of relationship. And that's where a lot of my mindset came from, because he started introducing me to his mentors, people that he got connected to. And we started to get ourselves inside of these big leadership conferences where you can just go for a weekend and you can just get inundated with success principles, thought process, and mindset to go and help you grow in business and grow yourself and really take a look at what you can control and not worry about other things that you can't. So that's where a lot of the mindset came from. And I'm so thankful, so grateful, because, to be honest with you, I don't even know I was going to move to this area at first. And when I moved here, I met him within the first 2 months that I was in this area, which made me stick here, which I'm in Binghamton, New York, for your people that are listening. Born and raised in Baltimore, moved to Binghamton, New York. If people would ever like to do the comparison, it's literally hard city to just straight suburbs. And everything is just like you got to drive everywhere. But anyways, it's a harsh difference from where I grew up. But that's where the mindset came from. The book itself is all about breaking and shedding self-limiting beliefs. Okay. The entire premise of the book, I came up with a formula. I call it the Unlock You formula, right? So the book is called Unlock Yourself, but the formula itself goes through a progression of 9 different topics that you can basically focus on to create a better you. Because that's really what it comes down to. I think entrepreneurship, sometimes we get stuck thinking about how difficult it is, or how simple it is, honestly, how simple it is to build a business compared to how difficult it is to work on you. Because I feel like the process of building a business is very similar across all industries, right? You got to have a product, you got to have a service, you got to learn how to market it, you got to have a sell it, all these different aspects that goes into it. It's pretty very simple. You exchange a service or product for money, right? That's what a business is. But the thing that I think a lot of people the trap they fall into, is that they think about all the stuff that they then have to do for themselves, like the image that they have to create for themselves, the mindset they have to create for themselves, the relationships they have to learn how to build, the ability to lead people, the leadership skills. All those things also go into running a business, but that's not the simple part, right? That's the part that takes a lot of time and dedication and intentionality in order for you to grow yourself to become a leader that people would want to follow, instead of just being a dictator inside of a company saying you need to do this and do that. You see what I'm saying? So the book itself is helping people shed those self-limiting beliefs early on, that maybe I'm not good enough to start a business, or I'm not in a position financially where I can make something happen, or I come from some really rough background where I don't deserve to be a business owner. All these different pieces, I think, goes into like, man, it's that limiting belief that you can't succeed. Where anybody can succeed, you just have to, again, you got to train your mind first. It all starts up here, right?
Correct.
Where the mind goes, the body follows. So you got to train this thing first in order to start projecting yourself towards where you actually want to
go. Why do you think a lot of people don't think like that? I mean, it's just not a lot of people think like, I don't know how I started thinking like that. I don't know what it was. Maybe I was just, my parents somehow raised me like that way, but I don't know. Why do you think not a lot of people have that in them right off the bat, or just as they develop?
Sometimes, to be honest with you, Steve, I think it's a sense of experiences, right? Mm-hmm. So like where you grow up, honestly, has a big influence on who you become and what you do. It does, right?
Yeah.
You can choose to defy the odds, right? Like that's a part of my story. Like I was born into a family stricken with poverty. You know, my mom and dad both weren't business owners. My dad actually abused drug and alcohol. He also abused my mom for a little bit of time as well. And then my mom was, she basically took care of me and my brother. Still don't know how she did it to this day, on a $13,000 a year disability income, period, right? So when you think about where I came from and then where I am today, it's a stark difference in what was being able to be created. But I think a few things kind of comes into that. I think some people don't have it just because their own mindset, they don't believe it or they don't see it around them, right? Like, for example, I can only speak from my own experience. So me growing up in Baltimore, even before I got to college, I thought the only way to be successful was that you either become a rapper or you become a professional athlete. That was my own personal belief, because the only other people I saw that looked like me that were successful were athletes and rappers, entertainers, right? Singers, things like that. That's the only thing I believed. Now, once I got out of my environment, because I earned a full ride scholarship to go play ball at Bryant University. Once I got out of Baltimore and I was then exposed to all the different other aspects of how you can create success and what success looks like, my mind started churning, right? And then I will also want to bring you back to a story that it reminds me of when I've been working at the Orioles and Ravens Stadium selling hats and T-shirts and peanuts since I was 9 years old, right? I work for an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Hell
so yeah. For a very long time, I was that kid that I felt as though I had to work. I never was opposed to a work ethic, doing something to get money, right? As long as it was legal. So my whole mindset behind that was, when you think about me working for an entrepreneur at the time, and then by the time I think I was either 16 or 17 years old, I basically told my boss that I had down at the stadium, I said, his name was Damon. I said, Damon, I think I'm going to get a real job because I just want to see what the job is like, right? Like, instead of coming down here working for you and blah, 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 blah. And I ended up being an employee at Finish Line. It was like in my mall that was close to me over in White Marsh. And I remember being there and I was like, man, all right, I worked, I think it was 20 hours or something like that, because I was working part-time because I was still a high school student. I worked 20 hours and I think I only got paid like $160, right? Compared to, I worked down at the stadium with Damon, just to put it in perspective, I can work one day when the Red Sox were in town and I can bring home $600 in my pocket in that one day, right?
Yeah.
So, no, granted that day it was an 11-hour day, whatever else it may be, but for me, that's nothing, right? I'm still a night hawk to this day. So when you think about that, my mindset was like, okay, I can work for somebody else and I can get paid like an employee, all the taxes, all this other stuff come out, or I can be an entrepreneur like Damon is, and I can start to create my own wealth, my own income. And that's where, honestly, it started right there. Everything started in that point in time in my life. I would say from the stretch, probably honestly from about 13 years old to 17 years old was when I realized, like, bro, I don't want to work for somebody for the rest of my life. Like, I understand leveraging and like being an employee, a job, a position, as long as you're doing what you need to do for the company you're producing, leveraging that to still build your own, like your other assets outside of that, right? But as far as working there for the next 40, 50 years and expecting to, get a pension, which honestly is not available anymore, or trying to depend on Social Security at the end of it, that's not going to happen, right? Yeah. So for me, I was like, you know what? I got to create something for myself. So I know that was kind of a long-winded answer, but I feel like coming back to your original question about why people don't have it, I think sometimes they just don't have those examples in their life. Like they see mom and dad just struggling the whole time, and then they just automatically accept that for themselves. Like, oh, okay, my dad was a blue-collar worker, maybe he was a mechanic or he was this. I'm just following my dad's footsteps. Or my mom was a teacher, or she did this, or she did that. And then now they just stick in that one mindset forever because they're never necessarily challenged to think outside the box. Does that make sense?
Comfortable with the
I was
environment.
always inquisitive. So I thought outside the box, I think by default, because I observed everything around me.
That's key. That's key.
Yeah.
I worked at a very young age too. And I feel like I had the same mindset with you. Just, you're just trading so many hours of your life for like almost peanuts, and it was just not worth it. And if you're going to work for the same place, there's no chance possible. Sometimes you're not going to get that upward mobility. Even if you're a good worker. I worked at a third shift as a forklift driver for a couple summers, and I was probably the hardest working kid there. Everyone's like 40. It's like I'm getting paid less than them because I'm part-time. And it's like, I could definitely make if I had put this drive into something that I believe in, I could definitely figure it out. And that's great if that's what you're trying to speak, man. I love that. That is inspiring. And how do you kind of get the word out through motivational speaking? Like, you hit venues up, you kind of want to just go into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my thing is where I try to hit people early, right? So I love to talk to the age group between 16 to about 22 years old. So I call it like, late teens to early adulthood type of individuals, right? Not to say that my message is not applicable to other people. I think it is, but where I feel I have the biggest impact and the ability to help shape the mindset is in that side of that age group. So a lot of times, I'm reaching out to event planners. I'm reaching out to schools, maybe counselors, as well as principals, business teachers, just to try to get an idea of like, hey, do you think my message would benefit your audience, right? Another way I do it is also just reaching out to universities. So anybody that's planning campus engagement activities, anybody that's also planning all of the student orientations and things like that. That's what I try to spend my time doing, just because I feel as though that's where I have the biggest impact right now. Now, as business grows and things change, I'm pretty sure I'll extend into other markets and things like that. But as far as my speaking business right now, as well as my book, my message, I think that's primarily where it's directed.
Okay. What was kind of the beginning of the motivational? Because I remember when I first started out doing what I was doing, it was pretty poor, but embarrassing to look back at it. But what was kind of like, because what I saw just from your website and whatnot, it's very clean. So what was kind of like your just start to your business?
Yeah. So that's a great question. I'm gonna dive a little bit back into my background a little bit more. I was the first student athlete to ever earn a D1 scholarship from Chesapeake High School in Baltimore County. Okay. Like first student in history. And I remember coming back, I think it was sophomore year of my college days. I came back home to Baltimore, but I wanted to go back and see my teachers and my coaches and things like that up at my high school. So I remember popping back into my high school, and just so happened on that day, it was the spring sports banquet for our high school sports, right? And my athletic director is named Rod McMillian. And since then, he's retired. I think he's actually serving on the board down there now. But since then, he retired, and he saw me come in, and he was like, man, he was like, are you willing to come up here and speak to these kids and like basically tell them, a little insight of what you did and all this other stuff? And here I am. I wouldn't say I was scared. You know how some people have that fear of public speaking? I don't think I was ever afraid of public speaking. But in that moment right there, I felt as though I had that self-limiting belief. Like I like Mr. McMillian, I haven't done anything of worthiness to come up here on stage and talk to people about what I did. Does that make sense? Like I didn't know how I guess impactful my journey was at that school until after that day. Because at the time, it was just kind of like, I don't know. I've always been a humble person, and I don't like to brag about myself in general. So for somebody to think like I had some type of zeal or some type of voice to get up there and talk to people, I immediately just kind of shut it down. I was like, no, bro, I can't do that. You don't want me to do that. I literally only came here. I had on hooping shorts and a white V-neck t-shirt. Like, you don't want me to do this, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, no, I do. I was like, yeah. He was like, tell you what, how about you go, you get yourself some clothes or whatever, you know, you come back here 7:00 and, you know, I'll introduce you and then you can just talk to the parents and the kids, blah, blah, blah. Right. And Steve, so that was my very first, I would say, official speaking engagement, right? And
crazy how it works, man. That's just crazy how it works. I love that story, man.
So from that perspective, right? So I go get some clothes, I get a pair of jeans, a polo shirt, whatever. I come back at 7:00. He introduces me, and I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll just, you know, I'll say some stuff. I don't even remember 100% of what I said, but my whole message was basically, listen to your coaches. Like, your coaches have your best interests at heart. So just listen to what they have to say and you'll be successful in what you're doing. Right. Mm-hmm. But somewhere in there, in that message, I also talked about my story and how I grew up basically in the exact same neighborhood that all these kids are currently living in. And at the end of maybe, I think it was 15 minutes, I only talked for 15 minutes, right? Which is surprising to me because I didn't even think I had 15 minutes worth of stuff to say. Right. Mm-hmm. These kids started coming up to me and their parents was just like, man, like, thank you so much. Like, that gave me some hope. Like, I'm trying to be an athlete, a D1 athlete. I'm trying to get a scholarship, but, you know, I got a couple of teachers that told me that it's not possible to, and blah, 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 blah. So, like, at that point in time, I realized, I was like, man, my story can impact people. My story can help others see success and then believe it, they can create it for themselves, right? Like, not to say, I'm not comparing myself to Roger Bannister. Roger Bannister did something amazing in breaking the 4-minute mile, right? You know, I'm pretty sure you know about Roger Bannister. So I'm not comparing my story to his at all, but what I learned at that point in time in my life is that your story impacts others. Everybody has a story. You just got to be willing to tell it, as long as you have success with it, right? Like, I don't think nobody wants to hear your story if all you did was fail, because then it's just a soapbox, right? Yeah. But if you went through some hardships and you went through some things and you still came out victorious, I think people need to hear that, because they're probably going through something very similar in their life. They probably got the same, you know, economic deficiencies. They probably got the same problems in their homes and in their, you know, in their households. And if they can hear somebody that's like, man, literally, I've been where you are, but I still created success, I think that is a huge benefit. That's a huge way to pay it forward for generations to come, right? That's what inspired the entire business at that point. Because, like, I started saying, like, oh, I can speak on stage. And then I was like, well, no, I can also start creating videos. Because if I can create videos, that's evergreen. That's always going to be there, right? Mm-hmm. So now it's just like small things as it start to compound on each other. And my whole mission, like I said, is to help people break that self-limiting belief. So anything that I can do to share my story and help somebody else that was in a very similar situation to me, that's what I get excited about. That's what I'm passionate about. And that's what I hope that people get from even this conversation with us.
Hey, man, you're inspiring me to tell my story. I mean, I kind of think, like, man, I've done some wild stuff in to get to where I'm at. Right. And I don't really go into it. I don't know why, but
talk about it, man.
I don't know why.
It's an open conversation. Let us know.
Yeah. Damn. I definitely need to do that more, because I moved to Columbus and with nothing, and then I sold all my belongings for 4 months because I didn't get paid for 4 months, and I was just sleeping in a basement, and then it had radon, so I moved up to the front to the where my buddy's living room was at, so I was just sleeping on the floor, it was. But it was, I remember just breaking down with my mom and stuff, and it was like, this is never gonna work or whatever, and then I finally got paid, and I remember she's like, you're probably having the most fun right now. I was like, honestly, I kind of am. I was just dealing eBay stuff, and I was flipping stuff on Facebook, and it was. I look back at it, it was like, that's actually a really funny time.
Exactly.
I never really tell people about that. I tell people about the eBay stuff, but not really going into it. Yeah, you're right.
I was about to say, Steve, your story is the most impactful thing that you have, bro.
Exactly.
When you think about you yourself, your brand, your company, it was all built based off a story, right? Yeah. Even the story that I just shared, I would have never thought that 15-minute quote unquote talk, I wouldn't even call it a professional speech. It was literally me talking off the top of my head, off of random stuff, right? Mm-hmm. That 15 minutes inspired me to become who I am today. Does that make sense? I feel like I think everybody has that raw root story that also just connects you with people, right? It connects you with your audience, your people. You talked about that very early on in the call. Like everybody has an audience, right? Like somebody's going to find you. Somebody's going to appreciate what you say.
You got to find your 1%.
Story is a part of that.
You got to find your 1%.
Exactly.
And you got to start as soon as possible, because it could take a long time to find that audience.
Exactly.
But yeah,
I'll take 1% of a billion.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Exactly. I'll take 1% of a million. I'll take 1% of a lot.
Right.
But it's out there, man. It's out there. You know.
Absolutely. So it's huge, man. I mean, that's another thing. I feel like if you can just share your story, and even for the business entrepreneurs, the people that are listening to your podcast, because I know that's more so your audience is people that are aspiring to be entrepreneurs, they're young entrepreneurs, people like that. Bro, start sharing your story, right? Don't share it like a soapbox, but share it in a way that it pulls somebody in, and then communicate what your vision is, right? If you don't necessarily have the success right now to show for it, maybe you're not rolling in all the money, you're not got the recognition, the brand recognition, but talk about your vision, right? Talk about like, man, here's where I was, here's what happened, here's what it inspired me to do, and now here's where I'm going, right? It's kind of like your framework, because now you're going to find so many more people that want to buy into that vision with you, right? Not because they're sympathetic for you, but because now they believe in your cause. They believe in what you're doing. So it's like, man, how can I help? And I think that's huge in business and in entrepreneurship early on, is identifying what your story is, because it's your story that will sell that business. It's not the product. It's not just you individually. It's the story behind it. It's so much more important than just what's on the surface of what people see, you know?
It's beautifully put, because at the end of the day, anybody can sell a widget, but I mean, if two guys are selling widgets, and I know that guy, and he did everything he could to sell that widget. Right. And I don't know, and that's just a nameless company. I always go for the story, but
right, exactly, because it's huge, man. I mean, like you think about so many brands that have now been built off of stories, right? You think about Tom's, they're built off a story. You know, their whole mindset is like, oh, well, after we sell a shoe, we're also going to give shoes away, right? It's all a story, because now people, when they buy your product, they're now buying into a cause. They're not just buying an item. You see what I'm saying? It's deeper. People as consumers and people in general, they want to belong to something. They want to know they belong to some type of community, or they're a part of some type of cause. And the more that you can connect your genuine, authentic story to what you do and what that product or that service or whatever that you're offering, what that now is going to start to promote and produce for other people and for the world as a whole, I think now you have something that's intangible yet tangible, because people can start to see it and believe it in their own mind. And now they want to jump on that bandwagon and say like, all right, bro, I believe in your story. I believe in what you're doing. I'm supporting this and I'm moving forward with you. You see what I'm saying? And that's exactly a part of identifying your 1%. If you find 2 of those people a year, right, that want to buy into what you do, and then they start talking about your stuff, whether you're, asking them to or not, those people duplicate, right? So you can talk to 2 people a year. Those 2 people turn into 4. Those 4 people turn into 8. Those 8 people turn into 16. Those 16 to 32. And now years down the line, you're like, oh, snap. Like now we got that 1%, right? We got that billion 30 years later.
Yeah. It just takes time. You got to start.
Exactly.
You got to start. Man,
yep.
We got the same mindset, man. I swear, the more business owners I get on this podcast, it's kind of like it's the same thing, but it's so reassuring. And it's like, it's just realistically, anybody can do it. And it's just like, I always just say, you got to start. You find your passion. What your passion is will get you to work, to do it after work, or do it to get you out of bed, to be able to make some post on Instagram if you're scared of what your peers are going to think about you. But I think a lot of it's just starting and just sticking with it, and that discipline. And I love what you're preaching, man. I'm going to have to buy your book, man. Damn.
Well, I'll be honest with you, Steve. I think a lot of people also, I love what you just brought up, because I think a lot of people, they have this misconception about being a business owner, right? Like being a business owner, you have to do it all by yourself. You ever like the thought process of self-made, right? I hate that statement, because no matter what, somebody inspired you to do something. So you're never self-made. Like you need people in order to be successful in business, right? So and it's great that you said, because it's like you just mentioned that it's being reassured, right? That you're going in the right path, whatever else it may be. You need people in your life that is also in alignment, not necessarily doing exactly what you're doing, but in alignment with where you want to go. Does that make sense? So like you have to associate, because association is a huge part of whether or not you're going to be successful. Okay. You have to associate with other business owners if you're going to be a successful business owner. And don't think you have to burden everything by yourself. Get connected with other either local business owners. But the beautiful thing about our time today, the fact that we're in a time where technology is so accessible to us, you can get on Zoom calls. There's communities, Facebook communities, where you can be a part of these conversations so that you have a better understanding, like, okay, I am doing the right thing. Because let's be honest, me and you both know early on, it seems like you're just throwing stuff on the wall, and you're walking through this corn maze, and you have no idea when you're going to see the light on the other side, what's going to happen. And it can be very discouraging. You can feel like you're by yourself. You have nobody on your team. Like you just feel just disgruntled and distressed, right? Like, and then you hit that wall. I think all business owners early on, you hit this wall, like, is this really worth it? I should probably just quit. I should not move on, right? But for me, every time I felt like I hit that wall, I had mentors in my life that I can go talk to that talked me off the edge, basically, right? I had a guy like Evan that was like, Eddie, listen, I understand where you are, man. I've been there. I've literally been in the exact same shoes as you. Here's what I did to overcome it. You're going to be okay. Just keep pressing forward. You don't see the results right now, but it's not like being an employee. It's not like you put in 8 hours and you're going to get paid a cookie at the end of the week, right? No, that's not how it works. It's exponential. Everything that you do right now, I love the book. You ever heard of, The Compound Effect is really good by Darren Hardy, but he uses a concept inside of there from the book, The Slight Edge from Greg Olson, which basically says if you got, decisions made over time, early on, it looks like absolutely nothing's happening, right? So if you make small, bad decisions over time, it's like over time, it's like, okay, nothing's happening, nothing's changing. And then out of nowhere, it seems like you just hit rock bottom. You're like, what the heck just happened? Like, this is crazy. But it's small decisions like, oh, man, I started eating a bag of chips every single day, and I also started just watching 3 more hours of Netflix. Mm-hmm. Well, you do that every single day over a 10-year stretch, you're probably going to get to a spot in life where you don't want to be. Mm-hmm. Health-wise, at least, right? Mm-hmm. Not to say how many effects that has on everything else that you do in life, okay? But you make decisions on the opposite side of that spectrum. You make positive decisions. And early on, again, it's going to feel the same way. It's like, man, this ain't worth it. I'm wasting my time. I shouldn't be doing these things. And then out of nowhere, you skyrocket and you're like, bro, I just made $10,000 this month. Where the heck did that come from? You see what I'm saying? But you get paid exponentially. You don't get paid based off of a linear, I put in 8 hours, here's my pay that I get paid, right? It's no, man, like you put in your work, your time, your craft, you're learning about it, you're developing yourself, and then bang, now you have the results that comes from that because you were consistent and persistent in what you're pursuing.
Exactly. I always say that it's like you're just bashing your head into a wall, and you gotta love that wall to bash your head through it, because you're gonna hate it forever. And then one day you're gonna bash through it and you'll be done, and then it's like it all comes like makes sense. But
exactly.
Man, I hate to do this because I do have another podcast after this one.
Yeah, no problem.
Give everybody just some words of wisdom, just impartial, message, if you could.
Absolutely, man. So I think the best way to wrap this thing up is just letting people know you have the seeds of greatness already inside of you. It's just your job to plant yourself in an environment that will allow that seed to grow. That environment can be association. It could be the books that you read. It could be the podcasts and things that you listen to. But whatever it is, you have to start figuring out how to water that seed with positivity in the direction that you actually want to pursue in life, period. If you do that, you're going to create success. It's going to take time. It's not going to be get rich quick. It's not going to hit you in the head like Vonage did a year ago, right? It's going to take time, in order for you to create that success. So plant yourself in the environment that you want to grow in.
Beautiful message, but how can the people find you?
So primarily I spend a lot of my time on LinkedIn. So if you can just search me, Eddie Thomason, on LinkedIn. You can also just go to my website, eddiethomason.com. For Thomason, that is Thomason. Do not put the P in there. Take the P out. It's not Thompson, okay? But you can go to that website. You can find a lot of different information on me. And also just be a part of the community. If you see me on LinkedIn, don't be afraid to reach out. What you'll find out quick about me is that I'm not this guy that sits on a pedestal and thinks that I'm almighty and I can't talk to other people. My passion is to help others succeed and help others grow. So if you got questions, things that you want to just ask, you're listening to this episode and you're like, man, I love this guy's story. I want to know more about it. Reach out and you'll get a response specifically from me. I don't have anybody else sending out responses for me. I'm here to help you. So if you need some help, let me know. I'm here.
Beautiful. Thanks for coming on, man. That was great.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Steve. You're an awesome dude, man.